Every day, millions of people accept offers of drinks from people they trust. A coffee from a coworker, a beer from a friend, a hangover remedy from a partner. It's one of the smallest acts of trust that exists. So small, most people don't even think of it as potential danger. But between December 2025 and February 2026 in Seoul, South Korea, 3 men accepted a drink from the same woman. 2 of them never woke up. What was this woman up to? Today, we will be talking about the Kangbuk Motel Serial Murders. You know those scam compounds in Cambodia where trafficked workers are forced to run fraud operations targeting people like you and me? They're not just stealing money, they're actually stealing identities, your email, your accounts, your devices, everything tied to your name. And once that's out there, it spreads fast. And that is why you really need protection like OmniWatch. It watches over your credit and scans for your personal data on the dark web around the clock. And if there's a data breach, shady credit activity, or someone trying to use your identity, it can catch it in the background so you don't have to worry about it. And if something's wrong, you can get an alert right away that tells you exactly what happened and what to do. And if you need to, you can lock down your credit with one click. Simple as that. And if things get serious, like actual identity theft, you're not dealing with it alone. OmniWatch, it gives you access to real people, US-based specialists who help you through the recovery, the disputes, all the paperwork. And you're covered by up to $2 million in identity theft insurance for eligible losses. It takes just a few minutes to set up and you're protected right away. So go to omniwatch.com/darkasia for 50% off your first month. You lock your doors at night, right? And this is the same thing for your life online. Thank you to OmniWatch for sponsoring today's video. And now let's get back to the story. February 9th, 2026, Kangbuk District, Seoul. At some time in the evening, a convenience store security camera recorded footage of a man and a woman standing at the register. Both appeared to be in their 20s. The man paid for alcohol and soft drinks. The woman stood beside him, smiling. After leaving the store, they held hands and walked to a nearby motel. The CCTV captured them clearly, a young couple, an unremarkable scene. About 2 hours later, the woman appeared alone at the motel entrance, carrying a plastic bag. She didn't look around. She didn't hurry. She walked out calmly, hailed a taxi, and disappeared. The man who had entered with her never came out. The next day, at approximately 5:40 p.m., a motel employee opened the door to one of the rooms for a routine room cleaning. A man lay dead on the bed. The employee dialed 119. On the call, the dispatcher asked, "He's not breathing at all right now, is that correct?" The employee confirmed. The man wasn't breathing. His body was already stiff, and fluid had risen through his nose and mouth. The dispatcher instructed the employee to stay on the line while they connected to emergency responders. The police arrived. They confirmed the victim's identity and pulled the CCTV footage. The woman in the video was already known to the police, and this was not the first time she had done this. The story begins 2 months earlier, December 14th, 2025. A bakery cafe parking lot in Namyangju City, Gyeonggi-do Province. Around 11:20 p.m., a single car sat in the parking lot. Inside were a man and a woman, both in their 20s. They had met through a part-time job and started dating. They'd been out all day, driving around, going for walks, just enjoying each other's company. At some point, the woman asked him, "Aren't you tired?" He nodded. He'd been behind the wheel all day. Of course he was tired. The woman pulled something from her bag, an energy drink, the kind commonly sold at convenience stores. But hers was not the same as those sold at convenience stores. She'd added something to it at home, a benzodiazepine, a medication that had been prescribed to her to treat insomnia and anxiety. She told him he'd been driving all day and deserved the energy drink as a pick-me-up. He took it and drank without a second thought. There was no reason to be suspicious of a drink handed to him by his girlfriend. About 20 minutes later, the man lost consciousness. The woman looked at him, unconscious, slumped in the passenger seat of his own car in a dark parking lot at close to midnight. Then she contacted his parents. The man was taken to a hospital and eventually recovered. When the man regained consciousness, he was confused. He'd only had an energy drink, so why had he completely blacked out? He replayed the events of the evening in his head. Everything was normal until he had that drink. He confronted his girlfriend. She couldn't give a proper answer as to what had happened. She just mumbled, evaded, deflected. No convincing explanation came, nothing that made sense. In early January 2026, the man ended the relationship. But he still couldn't shake the unease he felt over what had happened. No one loses consciousness from just drinking an energy drink. It's just not something that happens. By late January, he decided to go to the police to file a formal complaint. He reported that he'd consumed a suspicious beverage given to him by his girlfriend and lost consciousness. And he asked them to investigate. From the perspective of the police, it was a questionable case. A drink passed between partners, no physical evidence, no confirmation of any substance. Still, they took his blood and sent it off to the National Forensic Service for testing. Until the results came in, the complaint was stalled at the intake stage. If only they had tried to dig deeper from the start. If they had looked into who this woman actually was, what she was actually doing, they might have been able to prevent the tragedy that came next. Unfortunately, the National Forensic Service's toxicology results on the first victim's blood wouldn't come back until February 9th, confirming that psychotropic substances had been present in his system. Without that objective evidence, there was a limited legal basis for an emergency arrest. In the meantime, the woman was probably already going over the events of that night. No one knows what was truly going on in her mind at the time. Was she trying to kill him or just experimenting? Maybe she thought the first attempt had failed. They were in a parked car in a cafe parking lot. She couldn't just leave an unconscious man slumped in a vehicle in a public space. So she'd called his parents herself, and he'd ended up in a hospital where he recovered. The location was a problem. If it had happened somewhere private, behind a closed door, somewhere she could have walked away from without anyone checking on him, it might have ended differently. Change the location from outside to inside and increase the medication dosage. Make it work this time. About 6 weeks after her first attempt, she took a second shot. January 28, 2026, a motel in Suyudong neighborhood, Kangbuk district, Seoul. 9:24 p.m. A 22-year-old woman, surnamed Kim, entered a room with a man in his late 20s. He was different from the first victim. They had met by chance about a week earlier. It was too early to call them a couple. They drank alcohol, and at some point, Kim pulled a hangover remedy from her bag. And she'd prepared it at home beforehand, dissolving her prescription medication into it. This time, doubling the dosage she used on the first victim. She told him to drink it so he wouldn't feel rough the next morning. He drank it, of course, without hesitation. It was a drink from the woman he was seeing. He had no reason to think this drink would be his last. Before long, the man's body went limp. His eyes closed. He lost consciousness completely. And this time was different from the parking lot. They were indoors where they wouldn't be interrupted, and she had vastly increased the amount of medication in the drink. The pharmacology of what followed is well known. Benzodiazepines are sedatives that suppress the central nervous system, slowing the body's functions. The hangover remedy helps sustain and extend the drug's effects. And then there's the alcohol, which delivers a shock on top of everything else. When these substances mix inside the body, the results can be fatal. The airway becomes blocked, breathing slows, and then stops, and the heart gradually stops beating. Every hospital that prescribes this class of medicine gives the same warning: never take it while drinking. And Kim knew this. She knew, and she handed it over anyway. Time passed, the man's breathing grew weaker. The alcohol and drugs mixed in his body, blocking his airway. He couldn't breathe properly. Before Kim finally left the room, she packed everything that could serve as evidence to a plastic bag. Empty drink bottles, cups, anything that might show a trace of her presence and her actions. She walked out. The next day, at approximately 2:50 p.m., the motel owner went to the room after the guest missed his checkout time. He found the man dead. He later told police that the body was stiff and fluid had leaked from it. Police were dispatched. The case was initially handled as an unexplained death. After examination, the National Forensic Service confirmed that the victim's body contained not only benzodiazepines, but multiple additional drug compounds, suggesting Kim may have used a cocktail of substances rather than a single medication. The police secured CCTV footage, investigated the cause of death, and began searching for the woman who had been with the victim when he entered the motel. Through the footage, they identified Kim and placed her on a suspect list. On February 9th, the police received the National Forensic Service's toxicology results from her first victim and began coordinating to summon her for questioning. On February 10th, they applied for a warrant to search her residence. But while the investigation was underway, just 11 days after the second killing, Kim had already moved on to her next victim. February 9th, 2026, another motel in the Suyudong neighborhood, Kangbuk district, Seoul. This time, the victim was someone Kim had reconnected with recently. According to his friends, they had met once before at a group drinking gathering and weren't particularly close, just acquaintances who had each other's contact information. On February 8th, Kim reached out to him, initiating contact after a long silence. The next day, she suggested they get a room together. The man didn't seem to think much of it. He messaged a friend beforehand. She said, "We should get a room today." And she said, "There's a good meat restaurant that does delivery, so we should get a room and order in." Casual and excited. Those were among his last messages to anyone. They bought alcohol and soft drinks at a convenience store at around 8:40 p.m. and walked into the motel holding hands. 2 hours later, only Kim came out. She sent a text to the man she had just killed, saying, "You were so drunk, you just fell asleep, so I'm heading out first," as if the man were still alive, as if she'd simply gotten bored of waiting for him to wake up. And it was an alibi, constructed for whoever might ask questions later. The man was confirmed dead the next day after he had been discovered by the motel employee. Beer cans and his ID were found in the room. And there were no signs of external injuries, no blood. 3 victims in 2 months. The first man was lucky, he survived. The second and third were not as fortunate. The intervals between Kim's crimes tell their own story. 6 weeks between the first and second, 11 days between the second and third. This is a well-documented pattern among serial offenders. As they gain experience, they start to lose their sense of caution. Once they succeed and nothing happens, their confidence builds. Once they become convinced they won't be caught, their pace quickens. And then there's the dosage. When the first attempt failed, she doubled it. The first victim survived, and Kim's takeaway was simple: use more next time. She modified her own drug recipe, increasing it to a dosage that would kill. That alone tells you something about intent. What Kim did between her killings may be as disturbing as the killings themselves. On January 29, the very day her second victim's body was found, Kim posted selfies to Instagram with the caption, "I'm an autumn cool tone," and added hashtags like hashtag followers welcome, hashtag follow for follow, and hashtag DMF or mutual follow. On February 11th, 2 days after her third murder and just hours before her arrest, she posted yet another selfie. Her acquaintance described Kim's social media behavior as borderline addictive, saying she uploaded as many as 10 similar selfies per day. Another acquaintance said Kim had always been the one to initiate contact, sending follow requests first. Investigators suspect the hashtags were not innocent. They may have been how Kim scouted for new victims among the men who followed her back. February 10th, 2026, the day after the third victim was discovered. Police tracked Kim through CCTV analysis. When they reviewed the footage from the latest motel and confirmed that the woman who checked in with the victim was the same person they'd been investigating in connection with the January 28 death, they moved immediately. That evening, at approximately 9 p.m., they made an emergency arrest on the street of Miadong neighborhood, Kangbuk district. The suspect, Kim, aged 22. And there was widespread public criticism of the police. People wanted to know why they hadn't arrested Kim faster. The explanation from the police was that they lacked the evidence necessary for an emergency arrest. They had no power to move until the National Forensic Service's toxicology results arrived on February 9th, confirming psychotropic substances in the first victim's blood. Upon her arrest, police seized Kim's phone and searched her residence, and there they found a significant quantity of prescription drugs, approximately 30 to 40 pills of various types, along with multiple empty hangover remedy bottles. The drugs were the same benzodiazepine class medication from her psychiatric prescription. The empty bottles raised an immediate question. Were there more victims beyond the 3 the police knew about? The investigation soon revealed that Kim had lied during interrogation. She told police she had only drugged 3 people, but a 4th victim came forward, a man who told police that in mid to late January at a karaoke bar in Suyudong, he drank a hangover remedy Kim gave him and lost consciousness. If verified, this means Kim was drugging men even more frequently than the 3 known cases suggest. However, proving this case may be difficult, as significant time has passed and toxicology confirmation is no longer possible. Cameras captured Kim being taken to the police station. Reporters shouted questions at her. Did you prepare the drugs in advance? Did you intend to kill? Do you feel any remorse toward the victims? Kim said nothing. Her expression didn't change. She walked with her head bowed in silence. For someone who had killed 2 people, she appeared remarkably composed. During the police interrogation, Kim made the following statement. "We had a disagreement, so I put drugs in a drink to make him fall asleep. I didn't know he would die." To make him fall asleep because of a disagreement. If a normal person has an argument with someone, they leave, they get angry, they cool off. Drugging someone's drink to knock them unconscious is not a normal response to a disagreement. And the claim that she didn't know he would die, this is the same woman who doubled the dosage after the first victim survived. She told investigators that the drugs were those she personally took, implying she didn't understand the risk of giving them to others. But she understood enough to increase the dose. February 12, Seoul Northern District Court. Judge Choi Gi-won held a pre-trial detention hearing. Kim appeared around 9:54 a.m., wearing a black padded jacket and a mask, refusing to answer any of the reporters' questions, whether she had prepared the drugs in advance, whether she had intended to kill, whether there were any additional victims. The judge issued an arrest warrant, citing flight risk as the primary reason. The charges: involuntary manslaughter through bodily harm and the violation of the Narcotics Control Act. But 2 people are dead, and Kim has admitted that she gave at least one of the men a drink laced with prescription medication. Why is she not facing murder charges? To pursue murder charges, the intent to kill must be proven. What Kim used was not a conventional poison, but a psychiatric medication that had been prescribed to her. Her defense rests on the claim that she didn't know it was that dangerous. And legally, proving murderous intent requires more than circumstantial evidence. And that's why police initially secured the warrant on involuntary manslaughter charges. But the answer to the intent question was already sitting on Kim's phone. During digital forensics, investigators found that before the killings, Kim had entered a series of questions into ChatGPT. What happens if you take sleeping pills with alcohol? How much would be dangerous? Could it kill someone? She asked these questions multiple times. ChatGPT told her the combination was very dangerous and could result in death. And she read that, and then she doubled the dosage anyway. On February 19th, police formally transferred Kim to prosecutors on charges of murder. The police official stated she was fully aware that consuming alcohol together with the drugs could result in death. The claim that she hadn't known the drinks could kill someone was no longer defensible. She had asked the question herself, received the answer, and proceeded regardless. Police also plan to administer a psychopathy assessment, the PCLR, or Psychopathy Checklist Revised. The maximum score is 40 points. In Korea, a score of 25 or above is classified as psychopathic. The international standard uses a threshold of 30. The case has drawn comparisons to the notorious Omyoin case from roughly 20 years ago, another case in which a young female offender drugged multiple unsuspecting victims with prescription medication. Omyoin scored a perfect 40 out of 40 on the PCLR, the highest score ever recorded among Korean criminals. She surpassed even Yoo Young-chul, arguably Korea's most infamous serial killer, who scored in the high 30s. She was described as a pure psychopath with zero capacity for guilt or empathy. While it's too early to draw direct parallels, investigators and media commentators have noted the similarities in methods. The weaponization of trust, the use of beverages as a delivery mechanism, and composed behavior after the act. After her arrest, Kim's Instagram followers surged from 240 to over 11,000. Comments included, "She's pretty, so she's innocent," and "If a woman like that offered me a drink, I'd take it." Experts called it hybristophilia, attraction to violent criminals. The same thing happened in 2022 with Valley murder convict Ian-hye, now serving life. On February 25th, Kim's account was switched to private. The investigation is ongoing. Police are conducting a comprehensive review of similar incident reports nationwide to determine whether there are additional victims linked to Kim. Her phone records, social media activity, and medical prescription history are all under scrutiny. Looking back, there is one detail that's hard to set aside. The first victim survived. He went to the police. He sat down and told them exactly what happened, that his girlfriend had given him a drink, that he'd lost consciousness, that something was clearly wrong. He asked them to investigate because it was too suspicious to ignore. But the toxicology results from the National Forensic Service didn't come back until February 9th. Without confirmed evidence of psychotropic substances in his blood, the police had limited legal grounds to act aggressively. The complaint sat there, and by the time the police were ready to act, 2 men were already dead. Whether the system could have moved faster is a fair question. Whether the police could have done more with what they had at the time is debatable. But for the families of the second and third victims, that gap between a complaint filed and results received will be something they carry for the rest of their lives. Kim has since been referred to prosecutors on murder charges. The psychopathy evaluation has been conducted, but results have not yet been released. The trial lies ahead. The news of additional victims may emerge. This case is far from closed. But what is certain is that two young men went on ordinary dates. They met a woman they had no reason to distrust. They accepted a drink because that's what people do when they're with someone they're comfortable with. And that ordinary act of trust is what killed them. At any moment, the person sitting across from you could be someone whose true nature you will never see from the outside. These men didn't see it. And by the time the drugs took hold, it was already too late. That is all for today. Thanks for watching.